You've probably seen this. A room in the Vatican, built for a pope, and at the exact center of it, two men, one points straight up. The other holds his hand out flat, toward the ground. One believes the truest version of everything is something you can only reach with your mind. The other believes it's whatever you can put your hands on. Today, we're only answering his half. Athens, around 427 BCE. Born into a noble family, destined, probably, for a life in politics. The story goes that his birth name wasn't Plato at all, but Aristocles. Plato was a nickname, the broad one, that stuck and replaced it entirely. Some accounts say that nickname came from the wrestling ring, not just his build, that as a young man he competed at the Isthmian Games, one rank below the Olympics itself, and won it twice. Whether that's true or a flattering legend attached to him later, we genuinely don't know. But it's the kind of detail people rarely tell you. What we do know for certain, at some point, he became a student of Socrates, and when Socrates was executed, in 399 BCE, something in him broke. He left Athens, traveled, southern Italy, Sicily, for years. Socrates left behind no writings of his own. Nothing. So this student did something about it. He wrote him down. The Apology. A string of dialogues, starring Socrates as their central voice. Almost everything the world knows about Socrates exists because this one former student refused to let him disappear. The story also goes that his outspokenness eventually got him in serious trouble abroad, that he angered a tyrant, was handed to a Spartan envoy, and sold into slavery on the island of Aegina, that a stranger, for reasons of his own, paid to free him and sent him home, and that the very money used to ransom him back is the same money that later bought a plot of land outside Athens, a grove that became a school. The land already had a name before he ever set foot on it, the Academia, sacred to an old hero called Academus, said to have once saved Athens from destruction by keeping a secret safe. Even invading armies were said to leave that grove alone, out of respect for him. Plato didn't rename it. He just built his school inside a place already known for guarding something worth protecting. We still call it the Academy today. That's where the word academic comes from. He ran it until he died, in 347 BCE. Here's something people don't usually connect. The same man who may have wrestled at a national level also had a very specific, very strict opinion about music. He believed certain musical modes made people better, steadier, more disciplined, more courageous. And he believed other modes made people worse, softer, looser, easier to unravel. Train the body one way, he thought, and train the soul another, but they're doing the same job. Push toward the version of a person that's actually better, and away from the version that's merely comfortable. That's not two separate opinions about sport and art. That's one belief, showing up twice. Everywhere Plato looked, he saw the same split, not just an ordinary version of a thing next to a better one, but where each version could be reached from. Your body, using your senses, can only ever hand you the flawed copy standing right in front of you. Something else in you, he'd call it reason, the part of you connected to the soul, could reach past that copy, to the real thing behind it. He was about to make that split the center of his entire philosophy. Look at these, all different. Different wood, different shape, different age. And yet you know, instantly, that every single one is a bed. Same with these. A dozen breeds, wildly different sizes, and you still know, without hesitating, that they're all dogs. How? What are you actually comparing them to, in your head, that lets you recognize all of them as the same kind of thing? Plato pushes the question further, into math. You know, with total certainty, that the three angles of any triangle always add up to 180 degrees. But a perfectly straight line, with zero width, existing nowhere and touching nothing? That doesn't exist anywhere in the physical world. No one has ever drawn one. No one ever will. And yet you know it's true. You reach that truth with your mind alone, not your eyes. That line doesn't exist. Never has. Never will. Nobody's ever drawn it. And nobody ever can. And you still know, with zero doubt, that it's true. That's not a trick of imagination, Plato says. That's the real one. Every line you've ever actually seen is just a rough copy of it. So Plato draws the only conclusion he thinks the logic allows. There must be somewhere else, a realm that isn't physical, where the perfect version of everything actually exists. The perfect triangle, the perfect bed, the perfect dog. He calls these forms, or ideas, and he believes they came first, before humans, before this world we're standing in. Everything we touch, see, build, and live inside, all of it is just an imitation, copying something that already existed, long before any of us showed up to copy it. Even the ideas in your own head work this way. You didn't build up to the idea of a perfect triangle by studying enough real ones. The perfect triangle was already there. It always was. Every triangle you'll ever draw just falls short of it.
Sit with that for a second. Every bed you've slept in, every dog you've known, every rough triangle anyone's ever drawn, none of them are the real thing. They're just the closest your senses could get. The real one exists somewhere else. It was there before you were born, and it doesn't need you looking at it to keep being true.
If particulars are to have meaning, there must be universals. That's where we leave it for now. A world more real than this one. And somewhere in it, the only perfect version of justice, of goodness, of everything you've ever loved, an imperfect copy of. Next, what that world actually looks like, according to Plato himself, and why so many people have seen it, without ever knowing what they were looking at.